Happy Revenge of the 5th from the Resistance. Welcome, everybody, to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thank you for joining us today. I know there's a debate. People usually say, is it Revenge of the 5th or Revenge of the 6th? I say 5th, just because it's the next day. Let's get it over with. And, you know, kind of whatever, right? I mean, May the 4th is made up anyway. So let alone Revenge of the 5th. Come on. It's like, I think like Black Friday on like Wednesdays now.
I think they just need to figure out a pun for every one of the days for that week. Like instead of May the 4th, it's like the 4th Awakens, and then Revenge of the 5th, and then, you know, like come out with a better 6th one. That'd be good.
Right. Yeah. But here we are. Thank you to everyone for joining us on this Thursday, our discussion show. I'm John. That's Lacey and James. James is back again. So 3 episodes in a row. If anyone had a chance to check out our May the 4th episode yesterday, what a streak he's on, ladies and gentlemen. 3 episodes in a row, back in the chair. Just joking
always.
around, but we're gonna have a great episode today because we have an interesting discussion later on how Qui-Gon's death changed Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I think that's a good discussion to have as we're heading into the Kenobi series, and you know what may have been had Qui-Gon not died, and just quite simply what impact that had on him directly, indirectly. Interested to see where that goes because we don't trade notes or anything like that before we just kind of get into it, and the discussion develops on its own, and that's how we like to do things here. But we have a lot of things to do before that. But before we do, Lacey, how you doing?
How was your a little bit more?
Yeah. Before we get to that, let's talk about how you just stumbled over the word before.
May the 4th be with you.
There you go.
You were like, we don't trade notes before this, but before we get to that, we're gonna get to the before.
I said it twice. Get out of here. You said Babu Frick more times this week than I've said before.
Babu
so let's
Frick.
not even. Lacey, how was your May the 4th? Did you listen to your John Williams music?
I did. It was lovely. Rocked out, John Williams and all the other composers. John Powell, who's a buddy of the show. What up, John? As well as, what else did I do?
Chiquina?
Spent too much money.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
Michael
gotcha.
as well. Yeah.
James, what's your deal, man? How was your vacation? I didn't really get the chance to talk to you about it on
What's your deal,
on Monday.
James?
Yeah, no.
Before we get going here, you know.
Yeah, pretty
before.
good. But before I talk about that, no, it was good. We went down to Siesta Key. We have a member of the family who is looking at colleges, and there's also some association with some of the stuff that his current high school does down there. So it kind of worked out that both those things were in the same place. So we went down last year. And this year we went again, and I think it's actually going to be a continuing thing for the next couple of years as he's, you know, goes through college and stuff. We'll see. But we go down to Siesta Key, and then we make one day to go over and do like the Orlando Disney thing without having to go to the parks because we're already spending money over here, and we've been to the parks. What's kind of cool is to go over and experience some of the places that you probably wouldn't go because you're paying to get into the actual parks. So like some of the resorts, take some of the other transportations, go to some of the restaurants that are, you know, anybody can go. Like Disney Springs is actually like a park in itself if you really think about it. There's so much to do there and hang out and shop and go to some of their specialty places. We got to go to what's it called? Now I'm blanking on the name, but they have a new cookie bakery that's there. That's very like...
Oh, yeah. It's Harry Potter-ish.
It's Harry Potter-ish. It's kind of like Tim Burton meets, you know, like magical mystery.
They take the cookie and instead of like mixing
Gideon's.
in the chocolate... Gideon's. Instead of the chocolate chips being in it, they take it and they dip the cookie in the chocolate chips.
Yeah, it's like big, thick cookies and cakes and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's secret. It feels like a nightclub. You have to like wait in line and then they let you in.
It's like a speakeasy?
Sort of. But then there's a short little line on the inside where you're kind of like looking at everything.
Where is it?
It's
Disney
cool.
Disney Springs?
That's in Disney Springs, yeah. It's a new
There was, I
bakery.
think, a 12-hour line or something the first day.
Oh, yeah. We went, when we went
line?
before, we were like, well, we can't get in. So this time we made a day of going to Disney
I got
Springs.
news for you.
Kind of specifically so
What's
that we
the
would be
news,
able
John?
do this.
I'm going to the grocery store and getting a bag of Chips Ahoy, and that's the end of it.
I'm not kidding.
12
The
hours.
first day it opened, it was like a 12-hour line or something crazy like that.
I'm not waiting 12 hours
It
for
went
a
from
cookie.
the end of where it is all the way down Disney Springs. Like,
Yes.
all.
There was a line also, but a lot of the times the big long lines are virtual queue. So kind of like similar to Disney. When you get there, you can sign in and then you have to be there, like not in line, but you can be at Disney Springs for the next like 4 hours or
That
whatever.
better be the best damn cookie I've ever had in my life.
Well, I'm saying you don't have to wait in line. You're not listening to me. I'm saying you get there.
No, I know, but there's still a process. to get a
Sign
cookie.
in, go shop, and go have lunch or whatever, and then
like-
you
it's
get
like going to
your
the
queue and
DMV.
you go in. You know, it's not so bad.
So James, if anyone's in Disney Springs, free plug, go to Moff Gideon's and get yourself a cookie.
There you go.
James, real quick, because I know you're a foodie, what was the best thing you ate on that vacation? The single best thing you ate?
That cookie.
Maybe. No. So there is a place called Captain Kurtz, and it's kind of that prime location real estate spot. It's like right on the bridge over to the quay. And it's right on the corner. And last time we were there, we didn't get to go because it was spring break and kids that was doing was just swamped with people. So we didn't get to go. This time we did. And I figured that might not be the case that I get here very often. So I went a little bit higher and I went with the ribs and shrimp. And it was awesome. And the shrimp was better
Nice,
than the
man.
ribs. Couldn't believe
All right.
it.
Very good. Very good. Very good. All right. We are going to get into the mix now with our first segment of the day, which will lead into our discussion. But James, what are we doing this week?
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
This week we are doing Will of the Force. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit quickly about what keeps the show running. If you're listening to this, that means that you are a resistance, a member. You're in the base. Here you are. You're a member. You're crew. If you would, though, please consider supporting the show at patreon.com/resistancebroadcast. There you can sign up as low as $2, which immediately is going to grant you access to all the bonus podcast videos, commentaries, so much other stuff that we're doing over there. It's crazy. We have a lot of cool benefits and perks as you move up the ranks, including appearing on this show. And the backing that we receive from Patreon is what allows us to keep making these shows. That's 2 shows a week, in addition to our live streams, live events, and other exclusive content. If we reach that level of support, we can grow and keep doing what we're doing. It means a lot to us. So thank you very much for considering and
Thanks.
becoming a patron. I do want to highlight the people that get to be part of the show by doing our first Will of the Force question. Here is a Patreon submission from Commander Prevorius, right? Is that right? Prevorius?
Looks
They're
like it.
actually a new commander, so thanks for joining the Resistance. The question here is, will other non-force sensitive threats like the NEEL ever become a major threat in a Disney Plus Star Wars series? Lacey, I'm starting with you on this one. What are your thoughts?
Great question. Welcome to the Resistance, Prevorius.
Yes.
They have a really great user icon on
Prevorius!
on Patreon. I think it's like Dark Ray Lego form.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Pretty
that's
sure.
cool.
Or it might be Palpatine, but I'm pretty sure it's Dark Ray. Anyway, I think this question is great, and I think we will totally see non-force sensitive threats. I think that's something Star Wars kind of needs. We got that a little bit with Moff Gideon, and I think that's why the 3 of us were really excited for The Mandalorian. We were like, oh my gosh, here comes a guy that doesn't have the Force, that's just really evil like Tarkin, like he's just gonna...
Makes good cookies.
Yeah, just very, very evil. And we saw that change a little bit in season 2 of Mandalorian, but I'm hoping we'll get back to that kind of stuff, because it's just tough to keep repeating the same story of like, oh, the bad guy has the Force and that's why he's so bad. when I think James is going to probably touch on it, but like you could have someone like Thrawn who's maybe just more strategically bad. So I'm going to say yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll jump in because that's a really good point. I already think we are moving that direction with Thrawn.
Yeah.
Very specifically, Ahsoka. I took it from John. Well, it's because it's
been
reality.
James's
It's
answer
true,
for like
right?
3 years.
Yeah, it's just
True.
it's Ahsoka already said it in the show. Where's Thrawn? Okay, so you're already teasing that you're going that direction, and I think if Legends fans had anything to say about it, they would be like, we had a sequel trilogy. It was great. This guy, non-force sensitive, totally changed everything up. It was very cool. And what did Disney do? They went right back to the same well, Palpatine, I'm not saying that stuff's bad, but I'm saying that longtime fans of Star Wars have kind of been waiting for that non-force sensitive evil. And it is going to happen at some point. And right now we're only toying with small time baddies like Moff Gideon, who's kind of a one-off character who's leading his own little regime. But I think at some point you're going to get to the point where somebody's really a threat on a large scale, and they don't need the Force to do it. They just have power. John?
Yeah. And I'm not sure about what they're going to do with. Yeah, I don't know that I can, but I'll say this. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Thrawn. They seem very keen on flipping people in terms of their allegiances and stuff like that. And I hope they don't do this, but I have a feeling like Thrawn may sort of dissent or desert the Chiss way and his way that we've known him through Rebels and stuff like that, but we'll see. Like, does the experience between him and Ezra, whatever they went through, change him or something? I hope not. But either way, we hear that Ray Stevenson's going to be playing some sort of admiral, and he's sort of like a good notable bad guy. So I think it is going to come through Ahsoka as well, so I'm agreeing with what you're saying there, James. But I think there's going to be others too. Moff Gideon, like you said, Lacey is a good example already. Hopefully they expand upon him. We'll see. We always wanted to see Giancarlo Esposito have a larger presence, so
yeah, just
we'll
be
see what
ruthless.
they do with season 3.
Give us savage Moff Gideon.
Yeah, don't try to off yourself.
Like that
let's
creepy
go, buddy.
in season 1 when he shows up and he's just like, I know everything about you, and starts listing all that stuff off. Oh my God, so good.
Yeah, it was amazing. So I think the answer is yes.
Cool. All right, we got another one here. It's Will of the Force, so it's going to start with, will we revisit Coruscant in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series? John, you get to go first on this one. Any chance that we're going back to that specific planet, specific city, if you will, in Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yes, 100%.
Why do you say that?
You think he's going to go there?
I think we're going to get it in some sort of a flashback just because of the culminations of everything that happened. We may, once again, people talk about somehow Palpatine returned, somehow Order 66 returned. That thing has been wrung out like an old sponge, but we're going to get more of it, I think, in a flashback here. It'd be interesting to see what they do. There's just so much history tied between Obi-Wan, the prequels, Anakin, Vader, Palpatine. Everything is just like the core of everything ties back to a lot that happened on Coruscant. So I just think it's unavoidable. I don't think it's going to be a major thing, but I think maybe at least in some flashbacks or something, we'll get some Coruscant, maybe a little sprinkle more than we did in Rogue One.
LG?
Yeah, I agree with John. These questions are getting trickier and trickier in the sense of, as soon as we got flashbacks and dream sequences in Star Wars, it just opens up the door to like, well, yes, technically anything could happen. Whereas before it's like, would that character physically go back to that location? Probably not. But yeah, I think we're going to get a glimpse of Coruscant, either Order 66 with the temple and what happened there, maybe him interacting with Anakin at some point. I think we're going to get some type of flashback with him on Coruscant. They want to tie it back to the prequels.
Man, you're absolutely right, both of you, that it gets harder as we get into the dream sequences and flashbacks. I'm going to say that I think you're probably right, but I will still stick with the actual, like, will the character go there and stuff, and just say nah, you know.
Right.
I feel like another thing here that is kind of interesting is like we're being handed this other planet that looks very similar to Coruscant, so the fact that they're there kind of tips me off for, like, even if they were to do a flashback or a dream sequence or something, it still could be like, wait a minute, like, is that the same planet that they're on right now? Like, I'm kind of confused. Mm-hmm. It's not a large enough, like, removal from what they're already showing us. Like, if we were on Tatooine and they were showing us Coruscant, we'd be like, oh, well, that's clearly somewhere else. But, like, I don't know. I kind of just get this vibe that that's another thing too, is like, if he's on Tatooine and they show Coruscant, then when he goes to this other planet, people are like, oh, that's Coruscant. And it's like, no, it's I know we just showed you that other thing, but it's confusing.
Is it Jakku? Is it Pisana? Is it Tatooine?
I know, but he's not jumping from Tatooine to Pisana in this show. So so I'm gonna say no. I feel like it's kind of a risky answer, but I'm going to go with no. Let's move on to the next one, though. Here it is, another one from one of our loyal patrons. This one's coming from General Christian Morales.
What's up,
Christian wanted to know something very specific. He said, "Will the pie bet pieings be recorded at the hotel or be done live?" I feel like I can answer this. In the sense that I imagine they'll probably be recorded, but that's because I don't know that we're going to want to do them live in somebody else's venue and situation. I'm going to jump to you, Lacey. What are your thoughts on doing the pie bets in any sort of, like, live fashion, or just, like, you know, privately we'll record it and we'll get it done for people?
I'd actually prefer, so the first time we did the pies, I felt so bad because we did it in a hotel and then the hotel was covered in pie everywhere. Like, just
it was a key lime pie too, right?
Yeah, lemon meringue. I couldn't
lemon
breathe.
meringue.
Oh, lemon meringue.
Yeah.
It was very jelly-like, and it just sucked the air right out of me. I couldn't breathe.
It would have been better if it was key lime, though, because we were staying at a La Quinta.
I thought it was a Radisson.
I'm just kidding.
Or Best
I thought
Western.
it was a Best Western.
Yeah.
Whatever. It was the joke.
I know it was about a 40-minute walk from Popeyes. I know that much.
Yeah. In the freezing cold, uphill, both ways, believe it or not.
Both ways. Yeah, it is both ways. It goes like this.
It goes down and up.
All right. I would say that they will be done live/recorded at Celebration because we'll be together. It's going to sound funny saying this, but it'll probably be done in the parking lot so that we don't mess with the rooms, because the Marriott and Hilton hotels are very nice and I don't want to make a mess. Whereas if we do it outside, they're less likely to get mad at us.
You said like, live/recorded.
Yeah, people can be there when he does it, but we're going to record it.
Oh.
Like, why wouldn't we? If people are there, like, you want to come see me get pied, okay, I guess.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Get multiple angles. We can really make this into a cinematic adventure.
There you go. All right, John. Do you have any thoughts?
Hold on. Did we ever
answer?
figure out? I know Kyle has answered numerous times what we're owed. I know John is owed to pie me and you, James.
Mm-hmm.
You were that Luke wouldn't show up in a book, right?
Yeah, it was that Luke wouldn't be next in live action or something.
And then he showed up in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And then mine was something about Celebration. What was it? It was like they were going to announce something. So, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi was going to get announced on May 4th or something in 2020 or 2021.
I don't remember.
It was something like that. But so we're both, I don't owe a pie to anybody. It's just John.
Yeah, I'm not getting pied. I'm just smashing the two of you in the face with the pie.
I feel like, I don't know.
The question is, should I do it at the same time?
No, you do one at a time. You can't do it hard though. Let's not break anybody's nose. That
I'm
makes
not,
me
Kat,
so
come
nervous.
on. What do you think I am? What kind of person do you think
I'm
I
not
am?
even saying you're gonna do it on purpose. I'm just saying out of excitement, you might just be like, "Yeah, let's do this." Ha ha.
I'm just like, bang.
like let's be. We're still trying to figure it
no,
out, Christian. We've looked up like pie delivery services, and
Yeah, we have.
I'm gonna.
And also, I want to.
Can you hit me with a
uh,
pizza pie?
ooh, pizza.
I can do that. Yeah.
Actually, no. That would be worse.
That would be terrible for your skin. Not that cream is much better, but
Yeah.
I just hit you with a 150-degree deep dish pizza in the face.
I was picturing like a New York style really thin crust or something, and I was like, yeah, that'll be easy. And then I was like, no, it's gonna be a normal pizza with sauce and stuff.
Yeah. Also want to give a shout out to Christian, who I've been looking for a long time for a copy of the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga on PS4, and he was able to get one, and he sent it to me. So thank you, Christian, for that. Appreciate it, buddy. Very cool. I started playing, so
awesome.
very
Can I
cool.
have your Luke
You're the man.
Skywalker with the blue milk?
You can arm wrestle my son for it, I guess.
No,
Well,
I
let's-
won't take it from your son.
Let's get to the last question here. It's assuming that both the child versions of both are in the series. Who will have more screen time in Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke or Leia? Interestingly enough, which is funny too. I was reading to my son the ABC 3PO book, and Luke and Leia are both there for L, and I was like, that's weird. As stupid as it sounds, I don't know that I've ever really thought about how their names are very twin-like. Like even
And then there's
you know,
Lacey, and you're like, how did this get in
how
here?
did they do that? No. But yeah, it's like we didn't know they were twins or siblings for the third movie, but they were named Luke and Leia for 6 years before that, you know? So it's like kind of crazy to think like that they did have sort of a twin naming convention even begin. But anyway, which one is going to be there first? Lacey, what do you think?
Luke, definitely.
Luke,
Actually,
definitely.
wait. Is this a spoiler answer? Are we spoiling things right now?
We're assuming that the child versions of both are in the series. So we're gonna assume Leia's in the show to some degree, but is she going to be more than, say, Obi-Wan looking one time down at the farm and there's
I'm
Luke?
just worried that my answer is
more than
going
we
to
saw in the
spoil
trailer.
something. Are we spoiling something with my answer right now? By answering one or the other?
I don't know what you're about to say. I can't read your mind. I'm not a Jedi.
So you're I'm just gonna say I think you're saying that you think Leia's gonna be in it because, you know, we've heard that she's part of the plot.
Yes. Because my initial response was like, oh, we've seen Luke. But then I was like, wait, but we know this other thing.
Yeah.
Is that spoilery?
Yeah.
I don't know that. Can we just be honest for a minute? Like, first of all, it's a prequel series.
It's not
Like,
her
we know how
being in
this-
it, John. It's the storyline that goes along with her being in it.
Well, it depends on how much you want to say, I guess.
Okay, I'm just going to say
you know.
Leia, and I'm going to leave it at that.
I also will go with Leia for kind of similar reasons, but the thing is like I just don't really know how much Luke would even have to do with the story of Obi-Wan fighting Inquisitors. And I understand Leia doesn't really have a lot to do with it either, but I think under the understanding that like Leia might be a reason to be involved, like
Also,
then
Luke has to
definitely
stay
is
on the
not
planet.
involved, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna go with that too, but it's hard to say because there's literally no confirmations at all that Leia's even in this, really.
It's true.
And
Right.
we've seen Luke. He's there. He's announced. He's on screen. We know he's there. So what are your thoughts, John?
I mean, based on what it should be Leia probably, but I'm gonna say Luke. I don't know. I just still think I don't know how much they're gonna push Leia, even though I think it's gonna be. I think she'll be integral. I don't think it's gonna be one of those like that's just Leia over in her kitty room playing with her toys.
Like
I
kind
think
of what we've seen with Luke.
She's gonna have a purpose. They're not gonna just toss her in. She's gonna have a purpose. But I'm just gonna say Luke just for the sake of it probably should be Luke, especially, Owen's there and he's been in the trailer a lot. And I want to see a lot of Owen and Luke and Beru and Luke too, not just Obi-Wan and Luke. So I'm going to say Luke, though it's probably going to be Leia.
Gotcha. All right, well, the good answers all around. That was a fun Will of the Force. Thanks for all the submissions, patrons who got in there and sent us a question, especially the new ones. New Commander Pravorius. I'm assuming I'm saying that right. All right, anyway, let's move on to the next section, which is going to be a discussion. John, you want to tell us what we're talking about?
All right, this week's discussion, how did Qui-Gon Jinn's death change Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
So, Qui-Gon's death obviously changed the fate of the galaxy in several ways, but how much did it change Obi-Wan as a person, as a character, and his life's path in general, and anything that kind of fell into his path? I mean, once one thing changes, the butterfly flaps its wings, everything else changes. So I thought of this today mainly because, we're obviously up against the Obi-Wan series, but I don't think it's anything we really dove into on the podcast yet. And I know we've touched on the relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and we always talk about, and this series is going to talk about, like, what Anakin's turn did to Obi-Wan. But I think it'd be interesting to talk about what Qui-Gon's death, how that affected Obi-Wan, his circumstances, the responsibilities he had to take that he probably wasn't ready for, and also just maybe what it did to him as a person. So losing your father figure, that's a big thing in Star Wars, of course. So that's kind of where I want to start. Like, I think the burden put on him was sort of like he proud to carry the responsibility of sort of finishing what Qui-Gon had always wanted to do, which was fulfill the prophecy of Anakin being the chosen one by training him. And his last words were quite literally, train him. So Obi-Wan had no choice. The council agrees with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. Yoda does not. But he eventually ultimately says, they sort of outvoted me. You're going to train this kid. But, and Obi-Wan just kind of got forced into this like situation that he probably wasn't really ready for. And you see it in Attack of the Clones where imposter syndrome comes to mind, where with Obi-Wan, like, he's a master Jedi now, but he probably still doesn't, he still probably feels like he's not there yet because he just went from, my master dying and then I have to just take on this kid. And you still see it 10 years later where him and Anakin are sort of trading barbs back and forth, and you see a little bit of jealousy in Obi-Wan that he's the mentor to this kid, but the kid is clearly more powerful than him. And how do you balance that within yourself? And you see them sort of have this back and forth where Anakin's like disobeying him, and he's like, "What? Like, what did you just say to me?" sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think it always just had this effect on Obi-Wan. Whereas if Qui-Gon had lived, Qui-Gon was going to be the one training Anakin, and Obi-Wan would have been able to go through the natural path that every other Jedi had an opportunity to do, which is, pass the trials, become a master Jedi without being thrust into a situation that maybe you weren't ready for. So that's where I want to start. I'm not saying it's necessarily all negative, because it probably allowed him to grow up faster and become a better Jedi, especially probably learning stuff from Anakin, but mm-hmm. I think there's clearly a big impact that things would have been a lot different had Qui-Gon not been killed by Darth Maul and got to be the one to train Anakin.
Yeah. James, you want to go?
Yeah. I mean, look, this topic, and I'm not going to get heavy into my, where I'm like, I think Obi-Wan is not as crazy of a character as everybody makes him out to be, but this does touch on it a little bit in the sense that, like, I think that a lot of the problems with Anakin comes from Obi-Wan and his issues with where he was at when Qui-Gon died. Mm-hmm. I never have gotten, I don't know where I'm pulling this from, whether it's like novelizations or other stories that have been told, or I just read it right off the screen. But like, I've always gotten the vibe that while Obi-Wan was obedient to Qui-Gon, he didn't really like buy into it. Like he didn't buy into him totally.
Right.
It seemed like the council was like, that's not the chosen one. And Obi-Wan's like, I know. I don't get why my master's all about this right now. Like, and Qui-Gon's walking around like with the queen and, you know, in this hut area and stuff. And I feel like, you know, you're supposed to see the queen and all of the other people related to the royal party, like questioning Qui-Gon, but Obi-Wan's questioning him too. Like, are we sure this is a good idea? Like, I don't know about this. And like, I don't think Obi-Wan was totally ready for the trials. I think Qui-Gon, his kind of mistake here, and I don't really want to call it a mistake, because what do you do? He's being thrown into the situation. I just found the chosen one, right? And he's so sure of it. He knows the prophecy's down. He's been writing that for a very long time from his master Dooku, right? And it's like, I think he just knows that Anakin is his next step, so he kind of passes Obi-Wan off. Obi-Wan's ready for the trials. He's fine. And then when Qui-Gon ends up being killed, Obi-Wan now has this situation that he's dealing with. Like, he has been kind of passed off quickly, and Anakin, who he definitely does not believe is the chosen one, is now, he's sort of like promised that he's going to take care of this kid. Whereas I think the normal process for a Jedi, it wasn't for Anakin. They kind of gave him Ahsoka. That's kind of an offshoot. But generally, Jedi choose their Padawans. And I don't think Obi-Wan would have chosen Anakin. Because I think he too was like too old. Like, I'm with Yoda and Mace and everybody else on this, but I'm stuck. I'm stuck with this. And I think that relationship was kind of tainted from the beginning, which is why they don't look at themselves as father and son. They kind of look at themselves as brothers. And it's tricky. I just don't, I feel like a lot of stuff, bad stuff, stemmed from Qui-Gon missing that punch and losing that fight against Darth Maul. That would have just turned out so much better for the Jedi as a whole, and Anakin, and specifically in this case, Obi-Wan. I feel like it was just downhill from there because Obi-Wan wasn't quite together, and I think all of that carries over into his character from then on out. Especially, there's one specific line that always sticks with me too, where Yoda's looking at Obi-Wan and he goes, you know, Jedi are more and more arrogant these days. And he's like, like, Obi-Wan's like looking like right at him, like nodding his head. And he doesn't realize, like, they're talking about you, buddy, you know, you and Anakin and everybody in your kind of age range. Like, it's something's happening here where you're not quite fulfilling to that full on Jedi status that you should be at. But go ahead, be on the council, put Anakin on the council, you know. I just think there's some mistakes there, and it all stems from Qui-Gon.
Yeah, I think Qui-Gon's death is basically the driving force of everything that happens to Obi-Wan Kenobi, and where he goes in his life and the choices he makes stems from Qui-Gon. It's kind of like, if you think about it, it's unfair because he's put in this position where Qui-Gon dies. You know, first of all, you're like closest person because he's like mentor. So like his dad is dying in his arms and he's like, please train him. And he's just like, well, crap. Like, there's no backing out now, you know? You can't be like, no, shh, just close your eyes. It's all good. Like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
You know, you have to follow through on a dying wish. I think anybody would agree with that. So it sets in motion that Obi-Wan Kenobi is like kind of stuck on this path, this destiny that he didn't choose. And I think, you know, that's part of a question of like free will versus destiny and how he's so directly tied with Anakin. Did he ever want to be tied to Anakin? Probably not. What that would look like if he wasn't. And I think that's what ultimately drives the interest of the sequel trilogy of how does Obi-Wan Kenobi play into this, because there is that intertwining of the Skywalkers and Kenobis. But yeah, no, Qui-Gon's death completely changed Obi-Wan, because not only did he have to experience death in such an intimate way of the person that's the closest with him dying in his own arms, but he determined everything that Obi-Wan did next, whether he wanted to do it or not, which I think we can all agree that there are moments that you're like, he doesn't want to be doing this. Like, he doesn't want to deal with this. He doesn't want to deal with Anakin. And then he, as I'm sure we'll see in the Kenobi series, is dealing with it later in life too, as everything around him that he knows crumbles in front of him, in part to his own faults, to his own choices, which stem from this death.
Qui-Gon was definitely a father figure to I mean, that's just how it worked. He was the mentor,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
To any of the Jedi, and specifically Obi-Wan. But I still think that Obi-Wan had trouble. Like I mentioned this, I think he had trouble connecting and seeing eye to eye with Qui-Gon, because in my mind,
I agree. He did argue with him a lot in Phantom Menace.
In my mind, Obi-Wan trusted the system, and the system was Yoda and Mace and the council and the way things go and the process, and Qui-Gon was not part of that. He didn't like that.
What's your point though? Because that's all before he dies. So are you saying it freed him, almost like Qui-Gon's death allowed him to say now I don't have to?
No, I'm saying what Lacey
apprentice?
is saying is that because he died, he was then forced to take Anakin as a Padawan, because Qui-Gon made him promise that.
Which goes against the system that he believed in.
I would have never freaking trained this kid. I would have never taken him with me. How do I feel like we picked up another pathetic life form?
Right.
But he did argue for it. Because I think Obi-Wan is loyal to a fault. And he told Yoda to his face,
he said,
I will train Anakin. Yeah. He's like, I don't care what you guys say. I will take. So there was a little more of Qui-Gon in Obi-Wan than I think we're giving him credit for. He was rebellious in that sense.
But I think what James is saying, if I'm getting this wrong, is that it's not that he wasn't rebellious and stubborn or whatever you want to call it. It was that only came out after Qui-Gon died. Because he was so dedicated to the system, and that he kept questioning Qui-Gon, being like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this?
I just think Obi-Wan's path was so changed because he never would have trained Anakin. He wouldn't have wanted to.
Right.
He would have been
they all said no.
He's like, you think I'm good for the trials? Fine. You take the kid. You do your thing. I'm going to be a master or a knight, on my own. However I'm going to go through that process. I don't want to be a Padawan anymore. And he can be his own Jedi, and he can choose his own Padawans and stuff.
So this is going to be an interesting thing, because if we are going to get an appearance by Qui-Gon in Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I think every fan is expecting at this point, so we'll see. But I wonder if it's...
I mean, I am.
I wonder...
I don't know. Are you guys? I think 100%.
Oh, yeah. The moment it was announced, I'm like, that guy's coming back.
I was 100%, and now I'm 99, just because he's
no,
openly lying.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I wonder if it's going to be a situation where there's any sort of contention between the two, because this is going to be the first time they interact since he died. And I wonder if it's one of those things you should never have told me to train him. You should never have put that on me. And just almost yelling at Qui-Gon. And
that's what I would like to see.
But Qui-Gon saying I want Qui-Gon to alleviate the burden of guilt from Obi-Wan by saying he was the chosen one, but nothing you could have done. He'll probably say something like, if I had trained Anakin, the same thing would have happened. Or something like that. Mm-hmm. He needs to lift the burden off of Obi-Wan, because the Obi-Wan we meet in A New Hope is not a burdened man. And they're saying that this series is going to end with a sense of hopefulness. So there has to be a bunch of things that happen in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series to shift that from him, because they're saying he starts in a place where he's regretful and remorseful.
He has survivor skill.
Yeah. So, well, and also just feeling like not just survivor's guilt, but feeling like he is a part of what caused Anakin to turn and like in attack.
No. I know.
Yeah.
I'm saying in addition to the whole.
If Qui-Gon's appearing, he has to be a part of that shift, because he was such a big part of Obi-Wan's life. It would be a waste and actually awkward if he just showed up and said like, "The Force will be with you. See ya." Like, so it has to be impactful. I want to see maybe a back and forth that's not necessarily like, "Oh, so good to see you" immediately. Maybe Obi-Wan's not happy when he first sees him because of his state of mind. So I think like we always say we're going to revisit discussions. I think this is one we definitely should revisit after the Kenobi series is done to see.
This is tricky, man.
Yeah, to see, because a lot of what we're talking about is the immediate impact after Qui-Gon died. It will be interesting if we back end this or like sequel this with the immediate impact on Obi-Wan after Qui-Gon returns. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, because I'm running out of a lot of things to think of in terms of the impact it had. We can do a lot of like chain of events, like, well, because Qui-Gon was killed by Maul, the feelings that Obi-Wan has towards Maul festered, and Maul's thoughts on Kenobi because of what he did to him, and then he kills Satine, and then how does Obi-Wan feel about relationships, and does he take that out on Anakin and his relationship with Padme, and Padme having to hide the relationship with Anakin, and what does that do to Anakin and the pressures that he feels like, you know what I mean? There's all these things are a domino like effect. And you can start it with that, ground zero is Darth Maul killing Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, quote unquote, killing Maul. But so there's a lot of things we can point to. And I know people in the comments are going to say like, well, it could also, his death would also have affected this and affected this. I just wonder, what do you guys think Obi-Wan would have been, Anakin aside, just Obi-Wan the Jedi, would he have been a completely different person, completely different type of Jedi had Qui-Gon lived? He still went on his own path and that sort of thing. They separate from mentor and apprentice. Or do you think he still would have been the same person? Like, was the constitution of Obi-Wan changed at all with Qui-Gon's death?
Yes. I mean, we just talked about it. He became more rebellious, more pushing against the system to just do what he thinks is right instead of what he thinks everyone else thinks is right. He spends the Phantom Menace going back and forth with him, being like, would they approve of this? Would they say yes to this? Is this okay? To then we see him being like, no, I'm doing this. We're doing this. This is the plan. And then that's when him and Anakin start butting heads, is because he's very like, no, we're not. You're doing this. And Anakin's always been that way.
Obi-Wan does always choose the side of the council over Anakin, though. Like, every time. That is true.
But I still think that
you will do as the council instructed, and you will learn your place, young one. Like
that's part of the problem, though. Lacey, you bring up a good point that he does say, "I will." I think it was you that said it. I will train Anakin. So he's kind of going against the council. Yeah, but the thing to me is that Obi-Wan is not right for Anakin, and like you've got me really thinking a lot about what that conversation between Force Ghost, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan would be, because I think it's right of Obi-Wan to say, it's your fault. Like if you wouldn't have died, I wouldn't have had to train him, and this all wouldn't have happened, and kind of thing. But my fear is that Star Wars, the story, is that Anakin was going to be bad inevitably. And I don't think that's the case. This is controversial a little bit for me. I think Kenobi failed Anakin. I think the reason that Anakin is the way that he is because he wasn't able to be trained by Qui-Gon.
But that you're veering off, though.
I don't think I am, because I think what's happening here is, like, because Qui-Gon died, you now have taken this character and put him into a situation that he was never supposed to be in and wouldn't be in. And because of that, he resented Anakin, and he didn't really want to be. He grew to like him, and he kind of saw himself as like a friend. But I don't think he did. I don't think he did what a Jedi master is supposed to do to their Padawan. He treated him differently. And
he's jealous of him probably a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think like had Qui-Gon not died, Kenobi would have gone over here, and he may have been more like the typical Jedi, the Plo Koons and stuff. And he probably would not have had so grand of a story.
Maybe humans weren't supposed to be Jedi. How about that?
Why is that? Why do you think that?
Humans were totally fine being Jedi until Palpatine came along and screwed everything up.
Maybe, but no, I only say that because like Yoda is the Jedi, and I feel like every human Jedi are the ones that screw everything up. So from Mace Windu,
because we're emotional, probably.
That's what I was getting to. So like Mace Windu's like clear disdain for Anakin, never liked him.
But again, Mace Windu was right. I want to make that hashtag. Like
that poor guy, he was right the whole time.
Yeah,
I'm like, the guy sucks, man. Yeah, like red flags everywhere. But I'm saying, this kid is not.
It's the human emotional element. Like you can say all you want about the Jedi code and what Jedi are supposed to be and stuff, but at the end of the day, he's still a kid that was born on Stew John, and he's a human being, and he was thrust into that. They're human beings. They're it's a big part of all of this, and why certain people turn and certain people stay on the light side and stuff like that. Like they're no different than Han Solo. Like they're still humans.
Well, don't also forget this too. When I say Obi-Wan failed Anakin, also it's true that he was put into a bad position. He chose to take on Anakin because Qui-Gon asked him to, but also Yoda was right. Also Mace was right. Anakin had issues, and he was too old, and he was not a good candidate. And they said, don't train him. And Obi-Wan was like, I'm totally going to do it. And it's like, well, he wasn't able to do it very well. It ended poorly because he was making those decisions. I also think, that does kind of contradict what I was saying earlier. I think maybe Qui-Gon would have run into some issues as well. But I also think that Qui-Gon was probably going to handle it differently than Obi-Wan would have, because Obi-Wan didn't even want to mess with it. And Qui-Gon was like, I'm putting my everything into this. This is what I've was called to do.
But don't forget, as far as the Jedi records go, the entire council agreed with Obi-Wan. Yoda was the only one who didn't. It's the voting record of the council. Agree with you, the council does. Your apprentice Skywalker will be.
Oh, weird. I never really thought about that. They did agree to let him do it.
So Mace agrees too?
Well, he just says the council. So it was either like a 6-5 vote. I don't know how, I don't know if it's like that, but
that's
weird.
That's a good point. I'm curious if some author or something would ever point out, like, it's like there was a life debt thing. Like he promised Qui-Gon, and by that rule, we have to let him do it.
Plo Koon was
we
like,
disagree with
no
him
way.
Doing it.
No way. Absolutely not. Ki-Adi-Mundi's like, but what about the Wookiees?
Plo Koon says no way, and Ki-Adi-Mundi says, but what about the attack on the Wookiees?
Exactly. Right. Hey, are there other elements that Qui-Gon's death could have derailed or changed the trajectory on for Obi-Wan's life or path? Like, I'm sure, like the example of the things that connect into another series of events, I think is one.
I like your Darth Maul stuff. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. And then it ends up at the end, Qui-Gon's death helps Obi-Wan, because when he faces off against Darth Maul, he baits him into trying to do the same move that killed Qui-Gon. And if anyone's seen the 2-minute clip of Sam Witwer explaining that duel, Like, if you don't like the duel in Rebels between Obi-Wan and Maul because it's so quick, watch the 2-minute explanation by Sam Witwer, which is about 90 seconds longer than that duel. And you'll be like, damn, all right, Filoni got that one. Because it really is amazing. So go check that out on YouTube or wherever it is. But, like, Qui-Gon's death was sort of like when you watch, like, scouting a fighter, and you're like, oh, I know that guy's moves, so now I know what to do as a defense technique. And he knew he was going to go. He baited him with Qui-Gon's stance or whatever to do the same thing, and he was able to pick him off because of it. And so Obi-Wan lived because of Qui-Gon's death in the way. Because who knows if that red door opens and Obi-Wan gets in and gets to fight Maul and finish it with Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan still gets to kill Maul, and Maul still has that hate for Obi-Wan and comes back later. Obi-Wan doesn't know how to beat Maul because he didn't see him kill Qui-Gon. It's sort of like one of those, like, you learn something good from something terrible that happened in a way.
Well, can I throw this out there too? Would they have killed Maul? Because the Jedi way,
like, arrest him,
as Anakin would have said to Palpatine, is that we're not supposed to kill him. We're supposed to take him and he'll stand trial and all this other stuff. So would they have thought that Maul was too dangerous to keep alive, or was Qui-Gon's plan to disarm him and arrest him and take him back to the council
George
as
Lucas
proof
wishes
that the
he did
Sith
that.
are still here? I don't know, but I'm saying, like, if Qui-Gon wouldn't have died, and let's say they win the fight, I mean, the trajectory of Qui-Gon's alive, he proves the existence of the Sith by returning with Maul. You know, it's pretty nuts.
What about just the simple aspect, not even Jedi aside, like, Lacey, you know, the whole thing about, we've done a whole episode of fathers, whole episode of mothers. What about the simple, pure aspect of the father figure getting killed and what that does to a person? Not even the Jedi aspect of it, just the, you know, personal relationship element of it. Do you think that would make him more distant to get closer with people, which Jedi aren't supposed to do anyway? Like, what are your thoughts on that element?
I'm going to be honest, I haven't been in that scenario yet, so I don't have
Oh, no, but we've seen it in Star Wars,
personal...
though. We've, you know...
Sure, but it's harder to speak on that topic if you haven't been through something like that. I mean, I can imagine that it's probably tough. I mean, I've never had someone super close like that.
Like, look at what happened to Kylo Ren when he killed his own father, and what that did to him. Like, as Snoke said, it split him in half. So Obi-Wan, on the flip side, watched his father figure get killed by somebody, and that clearly had to have had some sort of impact on him.
Yeah, it's very similar to Rey's reaction, honestly. Again, leading you back to Kenobi in The Force Awakens, where she watched Han Solo die and yells no, just like Kenobi. So, I mean, I can imagine that. Yeah, I'm sure that was on purpose. You know, it's tough. It's like you feel helpless, and then you see him go through the process of, like, he's angry. Like, he's not fighting with, like, kind of a centered self like Qui-Gon was. And then you see him fighting and being angry, and then ultimately he gets the win because he's not, I think, centered, because he is kind of hitting Darth Maul with kind of a similar energy of, like, just very, very energetic, emotional, rage,
true.
anger.
Do you think there's regret in how Obi-Wan, like, do you think he has regret on how he handled himself? Like, could I have ran faster and gotten through that door? Like, could I have jumped higher or quicker?
I think we're going to find that out in Kenobi series. I can't speak to that right now, because the Kenobi we see in Attack of the Clones, even at the end of The Phantom Menace, does not seem like he has any regret.
So that's actually, I agree with that. That's a jumping point for me. It's like, I think one thing that we often forget about Star Wars, we say things like, you know, there's kind of like a joke, and I mentioned this before, like, if you were in Star Wars, what job would you have? I'd be like, oh, I'd be a podcaster, like a videographer. Like,
yeah,
because literally, like, trying to say, like, I'm going to be Han Solo, a smuggler or something, like that exists. Like, I could go do that right now, and I'm not doing that, right? That's very cool. I'm not doing it. I think one thing that we think about when we think about what Obi-Wan is going through or what these characters are going through when they're Jedi is we picture ourselves as Jedis. We are not Jedis. Jedis are monks. They're children raised in this religion to only know and only understand this one thing, which is like the Force. This is how we do things. This is the process. So in my mind, yes, you're going to be surprised, like when somebody dies, like that is your brain, your natural reaction to something like that. But I don't know that somebody raised in the Jedi religion would have the same type of emotional breakdown to someone like that dying. I think because
there are risks when you take it on the
but also
program,
too,
so to
I just think they fully believe. They're like, man, it sucks that person's not around anymore. But like, I know the truth. They went on to the Force, and like, this is, I've been trained to deal with people dying and stuff, you know, like, I mean, I know they're not like crazy in war at this point, and it's obviously going to get way worse when they get into the Clone Wars.
Right.
People are going to be, Jedi are going to be dying left and right. So they're probably not totally used to somebody dying on the battlefield. But my thought is like, Obi-Wan was raised very young in the Jedi religion to understand that when somebody dies, it's a very, in the real world, we call that religion, but nobody even is like 100% sure.
Yeah.
Like, Obi-Wan's 100% sure. Like, he can use the Force. He understands it. He knows it. In Star Wars, the religion is real. So it's like, I think having that understanding and that process of what happens to someone, even though they can't necessarily come back as Force ghosts, and that will be interesting because it'll be like the first time it happens, I still think Obi-Wan processed this in a very like healthy way, in a sense of like, I understand death. I understand what was sacrificed there. And he doesn't like regret the decisions, because people, as a Jedi, I am what I am, and I shouldn't hold on to those negative things.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing, something just popped into my head, and as far as a comparison that I think George Lucas may have purposely used as an evolution in Obi-Wan is when they get to confront Dooku in Attack of the Clones. And here it is again, 2 Jedi. Now he's the master this time. Anakin's the apprentice against the 1 Sith. And Obi-Wan, I think, thinks of immediately like, I'm back, and this is the same situation again, and I have a chance to do it differently. You know, both of us can leave here. And Obi-Wan says, we're going to go in together. We're going to do this together. And Anakin goes, no, I'm going to do it now. And he runs at Dooku and gets fried immediately into the wall. And Obi-Wan's probably like, oh my freaking God, it's happening again. Oh my God.
He Leroy Jenkins it.
Yeah.
It's weird. This whole time I've been picturing the Revenge of the Sith fight, and I'm like, Obi-Wan gets knocked out.
Right. But
you're talking about the Attack of the Clones fight.
Yes. Yeah. And then, you know, Obi-Wan has to face Dooku on his own, and he sort of is more like calm and the opposite of how he went at Maul after Qui-Gon died. But it's just kind of like one of those things, like he sees Anakin sort of doing this reckless thing when he tried to like use his lesson learned from what happened with him and Qui-Gon, where they got split up. And it still didn't work because Anakin was so tunnel visioned on what he was doing, and that might have been Lucas.
He definitely Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? That might have been Lucas telling us like, it doesn't matter what Obi-Wan does. This kid is on this path.
Mm-hmm. You could be the best Jedi, and it didn't matter.
Yeah,
right, James?
I know, I'm sitting there like, have I said anything this whole time? You guys still landed on like, he didn't do anything wrong. He's just the goat. Yeah, I know. He could be the best that there ever was, and it was not his fault at all. And I'm like, all right, okay.
But ultimately,
yeah,
it did. It certainly had a lot of impacts on Obi-Wan, and
huge.
And we're up on time. But we'll.
You know what would be a major plot
revisit
twist
it a
really
lot
quick?
more.
We go through the Kenobi series and we come out of it, and John and I hated it, and James loved it.
I'm like, it makes some. what I would be
Talk about that plot
they
twist.
won't do it, but like if how like what if the way I see Luke Skywalker is like how Ryan Johnson sees Luke Skywalker, you know what I mean? And like there's people like that's how I'm seeing Obi-Wan and No, I'm saying the same way that Ryan Johnson saw Luke Skywalker and he took him on this path, and it was like that was really true to the character, and that really makes a lot of sense in the lore, and people are like, but I didn't want that. It's like, what if what they do with Obi-Wan is like, yes, failure, yes, he's not the best Jedi, and I'm like, yeah, I'm screaming, I'm like, this show is exactly what I've been saying about Kenobi the whole time. And everybody's like, I don't know, they just kind of messed it up. He's supposed to be like awesome all the time. And I'm like, no!
Oh, I feel like that's what the Revenge of the Sith already did, is show his failure, you know? But whatever.
Yeah. He's clearly still dealing with it.
So let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know on Twitter. Obviously, there's a lot of other things we can get into, of course. But time is of the essence here, of course. Listen, we are gonna probably revisit this once we watch the Kenobi series, especially if we get that interaction between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. So it'll be pretty cool to see the parallels between this conversation now.
Gosh, we're gonna have to record reactions at Celebration.
Yeah. So we hope you enjoy this chat. We don't really have much time, guys. So is there just anything else that we want to throw out there on this Thursday episode to our audience? Reminders about anything, shout outs to anything. What do you got?
Just buckle up, guys. This month is going to be jam-packed with Star Wars, not just in the sense of like from Lucasfilm, but also from us with Celebration.
Mm-hmm.
New shows coming out. We're going to have that. We're going to have reactions to stuff. Just a lot. Like we're hitting the gas here on Star Wars content. So get ready.
One thing to keep your eye out on, Force willing, because we haven't recorded any episodes yet, but look forward because I think we have a couple people scheduled for the pipeline even before Celebration, couple guests.
A Celebration lead up,
Yeah, so keep that in mind. Keep your eye out for guests on the show.
We will have a guest a week from today on the show.
Yeah. I don't know. I think just right away, you know what I mean? Like Celebration's coming. Keep your eyes open in general.
Yeah, and if you happen to be watching or listening to this because you saw our May the 4th episode on Patreon yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for joining the resistance. Wow. That means you're like,
welcome.
I'm in. I dig what these three are doing. I dig their vibe.
They bought the follow-up. They bought the sophomore record, so maybe we're good.
I dig the cut of their jib. I've said that before on this podcast, and Lacey gave me the same exact facial expression. It's a thing. It's a phrase.
We had to debate it.
Yeah. No, but thanks everybody. We really appreciate it. We want to give a special shout out to our Patreon generals and Spice Runners, of course. Carmelo, Jeremy Myers, John RISI, JETTA Rosewater, Paul Olson, Frank Grande, Darth Hurricane, John CHORLTON, Nick KRATZ, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike RUMORE, Matt Heath, Double C, Chris White, Brendan McLaughlin, and Val TRICHKOV, our generals. And our Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gelner, Ryan WAARA, Dave HORNAK, MICAH Harrison, Thomas Hennessy, and Andrew Staley. And I know we're going to be seeing a bunch of you for our Spice Runners dinner, and hopefully a lot of our patrons and a lot of our just listeners in general at Star Wars Celebration. We are very excited that we are like 3 weeks away. It is incredible how close we are.
It just happened so quickly.
Yeah, and again, I know a lot of you people have already heard about it. If you are going to Celebration, check us out Saturday. We're doing an event at Radiant Beer Co. at 5:30 for happy hour and 6:30 for our podcast. It's really starting to shape up. We're very excited about it. It's free for all ages. So just come down. It's only a couple miles from the convention center. And if you are a patron of the Resistance broadcast, we will be doing a live stream of our podcast to Patreon. So sign up there. We will have a version edited a bit later for all of our listeners and viewers. But if you want to soak it in during Celebration Week live and get the raw live feed, join us on Patreon. It's going to be awesome. And if you are going to Celebration, cherry on top, because it's going to be a hell of a party and hell of a great time. Other than that, make sure you're going to StarWarsNewsNet.com for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, please do. That's free as well. And if that is a rating system, rate us 5 stars. We're very close to 300 ratings on Spotify, which is incredible. So thanks to everybody for doing that. That's about it. Johnny Hoey on Twitter, writing and editing at StarWarsNewsNet.com, and my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies. We just did Reservoir Dogs recently, so go check that out. And we're doing Unforgiven next. Lacey, how about you?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran and at Celebration. In addition to the stuff I'm doing with TRB, you can find me on a panel on Friday at 1:30 on the fan stage talking about Rey.
Nice, I've heard of her.
She's a small character.
Just a little bit. She's not all the
She's
Jedi
like
or anything.
She's like 4th level.
She's every Jedi.
Background character.
4th tier.
James.
She was an understudy for a while.
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, both at Myra Trunks.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. Is it Mother's Day Sunday? The 8th?
Je ne sais pas.
I'm gonna get that right. It is.
You should get that right.
Yes. Happy Mother's Day to Lacey. Happy Mother's Day to my wife. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there in Star Wars, including the fake moms in actual Star Wars, in the stories. All you fictional moms in Star Wars. Happy Mother's Day. But everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you Monday with another episode right here on TRB. We'll see you around, kids.